So, I am back. I just wanted to make a recording. 'Cause there's, you know, anytime that I make a recording, it's always because I have a lot of thoughts about a particular topic, and I am trying to encapsulate that in a recording. And I've always just done the voice recordings, but I had kind of started doing the the ones where I'm actually on here fully. And, I think that those are cool to do because, I think they give a different energy to the whole thing. But I try to keep these recordings as, as authentic as I can, because it's just what I want for them. But anyway, all that being said, I've had a lot of thoughts lately about a lot of different things, but this particular recording I did want to speak about this idea of life being a journey and not a destination. And these are things that I think about, and I had been thinking about this, and what I've sort of come to total realization about was that in life, in the life that we know, the life that you and I know, we're always on our way to something or somewhere. We're always kind of seeking a destination. There's always somewhere where we're trying to go. And that's usually at the forefront of our mind, is where am I headed? And everything I do is to get me to the next thing. All of our actions are to get us somewhere, to get us there. And then often once we're there, then there's another place we want to go. So it's all about destination. But I've found that this way of thinking isn't necessarily helpful fully. And the reason that I think this is because, it is taking me a moment to kind of get the words for this, to explain this fully, but I did have the thought that there is only one destination that we're heading toward in life. There is only one thing that we are all headed toward, regardless of what our goals may be along the way. And this destination we're all headed to is called death. It is called death. And I don't say this in a morbid way whatsoever, because I don't really think of death in a morbid way. Death is something that I've never thought too much about, just because I've always thought, well, me thinking about it doesn't really change it, so there really is no point in me wasting my time here considering something that I have no control over whatsoever, and it's the only inevitable thing. So we're only headed toward one destination, and that is death. But even death itself, I cannot say what comes after that. I can't say. I personally, as a human, I cannot say. And that's really where all of our belief systems come in, is this idea that's fascinated us for millions of years, is what happens after. What is this place? What is death? What is this death that we're going to experience, and what happens after? And that's not something that we know the answer to until it happens. So I sort of think of birth, life, and death as three totally separate things. And I did make a video called The Point of Life, because I've often thought about, like, what is the point of life? Because we're not born to die. There is, if we were just born to die, then we'd be born and we'd die right away. There wouldn't be this period in between, this very, maybe not very long, but very deep experience of life that we call it life. The period in between birth and death, we call it life. So in that time frame, what do I do? We don't know. I don't have a clear-cut, solid, in front of my face answer about what we were put here to do, in quotation marks, I say that. But I think that's something that each person individually has an answer to inside themselves. And this is kind of where purpose and, passion come in, because what I find, and just from being a person, who is around quite a lot of people, I hear a lot of conversations, and I see a lot of different personalities. And what I've learned is that most people take this period in between birth and death called life, they take it very, very seriously, as if they're gonna be here forever, and they're not. We all know that. They all know that. Everyone knows that. But people live as if they're going to live forever. And this is a fine line, because it's not to say that you should live and not take care of yourself, or not do things so that you are taken care of or okay, but it's more this idea that people treat this like it's not temporary. They treat it like it's not just a phase in between two things. They treat it like they're going to be here forever. And this is where things like money and status and appearances and worrying about other people's opinion and worrying about what people may think of what we do and who we are and what we say, that's where those things become incredibly irrelevant, when you actually realize that you are not going to be here forever. So what do I do in this time period between birth and death? What is the point of me being in between these two phases? What I know inevitably is that time will pass and I will become old. And people always, the word old has this like bad energy is a weird way of putting it, but it has this like negative connotation to it, because people don't want to be that. But I find that and this is sort of a side note, but I sort of find growing old to be a luxury that many people don't ever get to have, because things happen to people, unfortunately, sometimes. And I've always found it to be something that is a luxury and a gift, if you're given that experience at all, if you're given that opportunity to understand, to have that, to be able to be alive for that long, to even have that amount of life experience is a privilege, and it's a gift, and it's not something to be like afraid of or think is negative. It's like people want to just remain, people want to be immortal. People not even like immortal, but like people do everything to stay young forever, to almost like live forever. But that's the thing about it, is life wouldn't be special if it was forever. The whole entire point of life is to enjoy it while you're here, and keywords while you're here, because it isn't forever. It's not, and it wouldn't be special if it was. That's the thing I really thought of, because I was like, is death not the reason that we go after the things that we care about? Is it not the reason? Because it's this promise of an ending. It's a promise of an ending. And to me that is like, I find that to be a beautiful thing. I don't find it to be this like really dark thing that people make it out to be. And that's not to say that there isn't things about death that are frightening, but it's to say that it really isn't and shouldn't be, because it's just a part of the life cycle. And I don't say that to sound insensitive either, but I say that to say that death should be an inspiration. Death should be nothing but an inspiration. To know that I have a limited amount of time. So while I have that time, why should I not spend it exactly how I want to? Doing exactly what I want to do, being exactly who I want to be. You know, and I did just make a video called Identity where I talked about my hair, like dyeing my hair. I talked about being an actor. I talked about some things like that. If I was going to live forever, what would be the point? What would be the point? Because I had all the time in the world, so it wouldn't really matter that much. Everything would lose its importance. And so life is a journey. It isn't something, we're not always getting somewhere. I think that's a wrong way of viewing life. It's not wrong, but it's not a very encouraging or uplifting way of thinking of life. When you're always like minded in this destination-oriented mind, that people that are this world that we live in, this, you know, this way of life that we are all, no matter what culture or country, it's like it's throughout everywhere. This idea of we're always like looking to the next thing. It's never what is here now. Our minds are always just, our minds are in two modes, past and future, and totally missing on what is actually happening right now, which is all that exists. And, you know, I often say to people that I'm close to that time isn't real, and I say it to be funny, but there is a part of me that's being completely serious, because time is a concept. And what I mean to say is that the past and the future are concepts in our mind. They're not things that we can ever experience in a moment. We can't. All the past and the future are ways of thinking about the present that we're currently in. Because the present that we're currently in is the past to a future self and is the future to a past self. So what does it all come down to? It all comes down to the present. And I was thinking about this a lot because I was thinking about how we have these ideas of the past and what really are memories. The past and the future exist solely within the human mind. That's solely where they exist. They do not exist anywhere else. So the past is only what I, in my mind, remember it to be. You know, we have history books, we have statues, we have museums, and those are all excellent things that can kind of give us a snapshot of a time, but they still will never fully be able to explain a time period. What I mean to say is that people, what it really boils down to is that people are enslaved by their past and future. They are enslaved by it. They're enslaved by what is next and haunted by what happened, so that they are never where they actually are, which is here. I hear it all the time. You see it all the time. You see it everywhere. Everything is about what is next. And and I'm jumping all over the place, but you know, the past like I said, it is a concept in our mind, and there's many people that I've listened to talk about actually revising the past in your mind and actually being able to feel yourself unburdened by a past experience, um, not to claim that it didn't happen, but it's almost to, within your own mind, within your own inner world, remove it from your identity of self entirely. Remove it from you. And we all have that ability, and that's what's truly amazing, because we can see evidence of the past. We can, and that's what I meant by saying, there's museums, there's statues, there's history books, there's evidence of the past. But even with that evidence, within our own minds, the human mind, the human inner world, we still do not have to burden ourselves with things that we attach to our identity, are attached to ourself. If you made a mistake in the past, or these other sorts of things, and we actually have that ability. So the reason that we should utilize that ability is because if you do not remove the past from yourself, you are going to relive the past indefinitely. You are going to continue to be the person that you are if you don't want to be that person, which I don't see why you wouldn't want to be yourself. But let's say there's something that you want to change. We cannot change until we change inside. That's where change happens. It's not an external thing. And it happens by releasing the past from your identity of self. And where the future comes in is another thing, because people are always thinking about, they're always living for tomorrow. And I think that the only time you should live for is today, because you don't know that tomorrow exists. So it's important to truly be where you are. And I know that I know I'm jumping all over, but it's really been something I've had on my mind, because people they are enslaved by the past, and they're enslaved by the future. And these are just concepts. They're concepts. And humans are a lot like snakes. You can shed your skin. So while we are in this period between birth and death, we must enjoy it for what it is, and we find meaning within it. We find, in this very short amount of time, we can become things, we can create things, but in the end, we give it all up. So why would you not just do the things that inspire you, encourage you, uplift you, make you happy, bring you peace, bring you passion, bring you joy? I can't see a reason, because this is our opportunity to be those things. And life is a playground, and it should be treated as such. And I know I kind of went all over the place in this recording, but the message is sort of simply that I find life to be a journey. I find life to be just a learning experience, and one that is a journey that we should simply enjoy. And those who try to stop us from that, we should pay no mind to. So yeah, it's a topic that I could probably talk about for hours, but I wanted to put the most important things in it in this recording. And I also wanted to say that I'm really floored by how many new people are on this channel. My recordings, I make them when I feel inspired, when I have something to say, but I really appreciate that there's people that are finding some kind of enjoyment from them. So yeah, I come on here when I have something important to say, and I will continue to do that. So that's it for now. Again, I could talk about this for long amounts of time, and maybe I'll make a part 2, but this is a journey, and it's one that we should enjoy. So, yeah.